Hello?
Hello. Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
We couldn't even make it through one word.
No.
We're continuing. We're continuing.
Yes. Welcome to Don't Take This Personally.
A podcast about the business of creativity.
We are your hosts, Gabe Conover.
And Cami Oliveria.
I haven't done the intro. I feel like
That was
it's been a couple
hilarious.
weeks. I was like, how do we start this?
Someday we'll have a pre-recorded one.
Yeah. Hello. It's me you're looking for.
So welcome back.
Yes.
A few little updates we want to throw your way. Thank you to everyone who's left a review. We appreciate you so much.
Yes.
If you like what you're okay. All right. This is how this is going to go.
We got a dog joining us up here on the couch. Sorry.
If you like what you're hearing, please leave a review.
Please. If you like what you're hearing, please leave.
Oh, no. Please leave a review.
Yes, that instead.
The podcast gods love that. So if you
Yes.
could do that for us, that would be amazing.
Like, you think it matters to other things. For some reason, podcast is actually, like, extremely important.
it like really matters.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Really do that
We
for us.
appreciate it
Yes.
so much. And if you leave a review, you'll automatically be entered into like a monthly giveaway situation.
Yes.
So stay tuned on that.
Surprises coming at you from every corner.
Surprises. Okay, so there's
And then Clubhouse. Don't
Join
forget,
us.
every Tuesday morning, normally it's between 10 and 11. We hop on Clubhouse, talk about the previous week's episode. It's always a good time.
You can follow us on Instagram at don'ttakethispersonally.podcast, and that will be kind of where the hub of the Clubhouse info is. So if the time needs to change, it will be there.
Yes. Well, there's
Okay.
our little announcement dump.
That was a rough start. Let's take a deep breath.
All right.
What are we talking about
Today, we're talking about creating a personal style and finding inspiration.
Yeah.
I feel like pretty much all of our podcasts so far have been very, very business directed, which obviously that is like our main goal, and it's the thing that Cami and I are the best at. But we wanted to like,
What we're the best at?
well, I mean.
Oh, you mean,
like
in our own personal
Yeah.
business? Oh, I thought you meant like we're the best, like better than anyone.
No.
So the thing Gabe and I are better than anyone at is business. That's how I interpreted that.
This is all over the place.
Oh my god,
we're killing it.
That was
Anyway.
so funny.
I just was gonna say
that is the thing
this
we
is a little
focus on
break.
more.
Yeah, there we go.
We focus on business more
Yes.
than the art. And today we just want to talk about creativity. And this
Yes.
actually does come from a listener question.
Yes.
A listener asked, kind of talking about how you develop your own personal style.
Yes, such a great question.
How do you know, how do you find inspiration from other creatives without straight up copying?
Especially when there's so many artists out there, and a lot of us are very similar.
Yeah.
So, yeah, great thing to talk about. But I also
Yeah.
think it's cool for people who are more business-minded to be talking about this, because I think it's easy for us to get stuck in, like, business ruts where we're just like, it's all business, it's all business, it's all
That's
about,
me.
like, making money. And I'm the same. That sometimes I'll neglect my artistic side.
Yep.
So it's really a good thing for us business-minded people to, like, focus on the creativity part
Damn
of it
straight.
as well. So
Damn straight.
here we are.
So how do we get into this?
I feel like the best way to start, I feel like the question of how do you create your own personal style, is, I love that question, because to me, I feel like everyone's starting out, there's something that kind of like snags us, maybe a specific artist or a specific style that snags us and pulls us into this creative artistic world.
Yep.
For me, I mean, straight up, it was India Earl. Like, when I first kind of was considering going full time, I had never heard of her before, and then I saw her page, and I thought everything that she did was very unique compared to what I had seen. And granted, like, I had not been on the Instagram at all. I literally didn't have an Instagram account, and I loved like her different approach to what I thought weddings were supposed to look like. Did it necessarily start with her? No, but I thought that she did a really good job at it. So that was kind of like the thing that snagged me and was like, okay, like, this is my first source of inspiration for as far as photography goes.
Cool.
Now that it's been a few years, like, I look at like how I looked up to that style and to her so much, and I'm like, man, that's so interesting to me, because we are so different, and the way that I look at things, the way that I do things is so naturally so different than from the way that she does it. And this goes for anyone. Like, all of the artists that I look up to currently, it's not like I actually am trying to be them because, we have these major differences that just cause us to be very different artists.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I feel like this question maybe stems from is like, okay, I look up to all of these people. It feels like I'm just trying to be them, and that should not be our goal, obviously, right? Like, I don't want to be the same as the people I look up to. I want to be Gabe. I want to be Gabe the photographer. I want I want people to see my work and to be like, oh, Gabe took that.
Yeah.
And for it to be obvious. Like, that's my biggest goal.
Which I would say you have accomplished, particularly in the last year, 6 months. Specific.
I would say the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That means a lot.
Yeah.
I feel that way personally. I truly do.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because I stopped really chasing after like this idea of what I thought the best photographer looked like, and really started to emphasize and like capitalize on what made me me.
Cool.
So I feel like that's a great place to start, as I just rambled on for 5 minutes.
No, that's fantastic, because I would say, similar to a lot of the things we've covered in this podcast, I have had a similar approach, and I haven't overthought it or tried that hard. Like, I didn't set out in photography being like, I want to be this style, or I want to chase after this look.
Yeah.
Mostly because when I started, Instagram wedding photographers weren't as common as they are now. So like when you came into the game, there were a few really big people who it was easy to follow.
That's true.
Whereas when I started, I didn't know who any of those people were, and they weren't as prevalent and obvious. So my style personally just developed from like following the things that I liked, and literally just
as it should.
Just shooting what I liked, and then a natural style developed from that. And so
good.
Now, if I'm having a slight style change or whatever it is, like I can be like, well, do I like it? Then it's probably my style. Like if it's what I like. I really haven't ever tried to overthink it. And that's why it's a hard question when people are like, how would you describe your style? Because I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, I think a lot of that is like up to interpretation. Like when I lived in Washington, people thought I was really bright and airy, because I was...
That's so funny.
Isn't that fascinating? And then when I moved here, I've had people describe my work as moody, which I wouldn't say my work is moody at all. But like, I feel like style is so subjective and relative.
Yes.
And so I don't like answering that question. Like, what is your style? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I know what I like. I know I like color. I like it to be fun and bright and vibrant and easy and, you know, storytelling fueled. But, like, I don't know. I don't like being held into a box of, like, style words necessarily. My style just comes from following my preferences and creating work I like.
And that's so obvious. It's so funny. Like, if you knew Cami personally, if you guys do know Cami personally, like, and you kind of, like, compare who she is as a person to the work that she puts out there, it's like, you look at it and you're like, yeah, that makes total sense. That is exactly the type of work I would expect Cami to put out there.
Oh my God, that's so nice.
It's true. It's literally true.
Oh, no one has ever said that to me before. That's
Don't
really
cry.
Nice. That's really nice, but
I mean it. I mean it. Not just saying it.
Yeah, so if that's true, that's truly just the case of I don't try to be a certain style.
Wow.
I'm literally just creating work that I like and that I would want if I had my own images taken.
Amazing.
And a style just kind of naturally develops from that. I no doubt have like some favorite photographers whose work that I'm like, oh my gosh, I would love my work to look like that someday or whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm just like creating work I like, and those photographers that are my favorite, their work is pretty similar to mine. Like,
that's true.
Because I like it. I'm drawn
You're attracted
to
it for a reason.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that this is so cool. I feel like there's always these, you know, new fads that come up in every type of culture and every type of world. There's always new fads, and like for a while, the biggest fad with photography and like weddings and stuff like that was all of these crazy adventurous like elopements and like going out to the mountains and hiking and doing all this stuff. And Cami and I were just talking about how like that is something that we've never been really attracted to.
It's like why I moved away from the Pacific Northwest.
Like I love shooting in the mountains, don't get me wrong, but if I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna find a spot where literally I can park right next to the spot I'm shooting and just there we are. We're there. We're not hiking in our fancy outfits. Like no one is going on these massive long hikes. I was joking with Gabe
that my sense of adventure is going on a long drive somewhere.
There you go. And listening to podcasts on the way.
Literally. Yeah.
That's enough traveling.
That is so funny.
But it's true. But I know so many, I mean, I guess I'm trying to put it in my own personal perspective was like, when I entered into this world, there was a very specific look that was trendy, and so I was like, oh, I have to go after this look. This is what's popular right now. And for a time it worked for me, but over time I was just like kind of really not inspired by it because it didn't feel like me completely. And the more that I did what Cami had done from the very beginning and just kind of started doing the things that I love and the things that actually make sense to who I am as a person, like my personal life and the things I'm interested in my personal life should translate over into my business. That's how it works, and into my creativity. That it all should go together. So I think it's so important. This is like, I guess my first piece of advice is for all of you to take a step back and actually look at the things that you genuinely love spending time doing, time like researching or getting into. For me personally, like I love fashion. I love, I'm trying to.
For me, it's
that's it. No, just
for
kidding.
me, it's like music video stills.
Yes,
music videos.
Oh,
I find like a lot of
that.
inspiration from music
Love
videos.
That. And then I find tons of inspiration from like old movies, because I don't know, it's just an old film photos, the black and white photos of like our grandparents and great grandparents are always so interesting to me, because no one posed for the camera before, and now everyone just poses all the time. And then I'm also just inspired by like soft, neutral type stuff. So when I'm looking at all these things, when I look at my personal closet and the colors that I'm attracted to, right? Or when like, if I were to have a shoot of myself or of me and my wife right now, where would I go? It really would not be to this epic mountain location right now, because that's just not what I'm interested in. I'm way more interested in the simple blank slate where I can kind of create with, you know, my clients from there, or just like create a look out of that. I mean, my studio is a perfect example of this. I literally gets my perfect shooting environment right now because I can do whatever I want in there.
So cool.
I did a shoot at a skate park, which like, it's so, it could be so like redundant and boring, but it's not, because to me that blank slate and like creating something that is unique in that way and doesn't have to be epic to me. I'm not super into like the epic look anymore.
It doesn't all have to be epic.
No.
I would rather be in a not impressive place with like people, like I don't know, I'm kind of over like we need a big epic landscape to make something beautiful, because that's easy.
Right. And don't get me wrong, I love doing that still, but like when I'm talking about creating things for myself, that's never the place that I'm going to choose right now, because it's not where I'm the most inspired.
Yeah. I mean, even just look, I mean, you want to talk about style and color and using your own personality to impact your work. Like we're sitting in my office right now. Look at all like my color, you know, like what we're looking at right in front of us is
totally
like bright
true.
Pops of color, and it's like
couch.
It's white and bright with just like fun bright colors that just make me feel like I'm at a party in Palm Springs or something, you know, and that's just literally who I am. So of course my work is going to kind of look like that. I do think I had a weird, at the time, felt like a disadvantage, but I can now see it as an advantage when as you were describing, as we were both kind of getting at, when I started photography, I didn't have the exposure to all the other photographers, so I didn't have an option of like trying to become a certain style because I wasn't aware of them. So I just like, I think it would have been different if I would have come in a few years after I did, like maybe around the time you did, because the exposure to photographers was just a different world. So that was kind of an interesting.
I would definitely have looked at that as a negative in the beginning too.
And then because
now I'm like, that's dope.
I know. Now I can see like, wow, I think that was maybe like a strength of mine, that I didn't do anything on purpose to be a certain way because I didn't know about them.
So cool.
Whereas now I think I would have been a lot more consumed and trying to emulate my favorite photographers who I am now aware of, was not aware of at the time. So
to put this into a different term too, because it was we were talking earlier and it was hard for me to relate to this specific issue, because over the last year I really feel like I've come into my own style and like have really figured out what you know Gabe the photographer looks like and what my stuff looks like. I'm very proud of everything that I put out there at this point, but I like something else that I'm really interested in is music, and I've been playing piano since I was 5, and I've always been really like hard on myself when it comes to like trying to write stuff though. And my wife, she literally could write a song in a minute. I'm not even joking. It's ridiculous. She could sit down and she could write a song in a minute. And something that I'm really envious about is that she's always known exactly the type of music that she likes and the stuff that is familiar to her. And it's familiar to her and she likes it because she's obviously attracted to it. So it's cool. Easier for her to write something because she knows the exact type of stuff that works for who she is. I feel like I kept like looking at different music artists that I thought were extremely talented, and I would just be like, oh my gosh, I'd love to like write a song like them. But when I really think about it, the type of music that they produce and put out there is not my style, and it's not what I'm more naturally interested in.
Like, it's almost like your wife has less distractions.
Yes. Oh,
really interesting.
Totally.
Really
yeah.
interesting.
Because she knows how, like, what works for her and what she loves.
That's
and
cool.
For me, I feel like it just took a lot longer for me to be like, oh, there's a reason that when I play piano, this is the type of stuff that I'm always playing. And I'm never satisfied when I try to do a certain type of style that just totally isn't me. So that is like a recent revelation where I was like, maybe I'm just like trying to do something that doesn't make any sense to me. And that is something that obviously translates into any type of creativity. So if you are trying to like mimic a certain style that really, if it feels unnatural, it probably is unnatural.
Well, I think even using the word mimic, like if you're trying too hard almost, or
yes,
like
if you're trying too hard,
if you're trying to create a look that you're not just kind of coming up with naturally, I think that is the problem. That is literally the problem. And
that
I can
is
see
so
this.
brilliantly put.
There's some photographers I really like and look up to and just like love their work, and my work is nothing like theirs, and sometimes I'm like, oh man, like would I be better if I tried to do that? And I'm like, no, that would be a problem. Like I would not be doing anyone a service by trying to be another photographer, because I wouldn't do it as well.
Wow.
I can be like the best Cami. I can't be like a second or third or fourth or fifth best someone else.
Wow. This is such a great transition point too, because when it comes to like my photography, as I was saying, like over the last year, I really do feel like completely in my like element as a photographer. I like love, I know it's crazy. I actually love everything that I do finally, which is amazing.
Wow.
And this translates perfectly into like, I don't ever really go into shoots anymore, like stressing that I'm not going to be able to produce the type of stuff that I like.
Cool.
Because I know it like the back of my hand. Last week I did a maternity shoot in my studio with some friends of mine, and I had like zero plans. Literally zero plans.
Cool.
And when what we ended up like producing like together was like so much more creative than I like probably would have imagined I could do a year ago.
Cool.
And it all came so naturally to me because I wasn't thinking too hard. I was just allowing myself to look at the inspiration that was around me and take it in and, you know, use what inspired me as far as like my surroundings went.
So this is fascinating that you say that, because I actually had an engagement shoot the other week that I went into mentally in a completely different way than I had before.
Okay.
Like I had gone into all my other shoots with like all the prompts and stuff that you know you're supposed to do to get certain emotional reactions from people. That always felt stupid and fake and contrived to me. And then I'll do a little plug right here. I did Phil Chester's posing theory class, and his wife Sarah. It's not just his, but he's one of my favorites, so that's how I found it. And I think every photographer needs to do that course, but I had an engagement shoot 2 days after I did that course, and I went into it with a way more open mind, did the least amount of prompting, posing, directing, whatever. Like I went into it with the least amount of plan based on what I learned, and I had like 700 images to give them. I had like so much variety with doing like the least amount of work. I like don't know how to describe it, but when I went in with a more open mind and more of just like trusting my instincts more than kind of memorizing these prompts and things that I've learned create a certain result, that felt pretty unnatural to me. So anyways, that was just like a little side note.
Well,
really
it's
cool.
true. We are, you know, professionals. Like you've been doing this for longer than I have, and I've been, you know, at this for 3 years, and I still feel like I know how my instinct like the back of my hand, you know, and it's so easy to to distrust myself. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Distrust. To distrust myself, like to the point where I feel like I'm not going to be able to do what I normally am able to do. It's like it's a mind game that we play with ourselves. It's so stupid.
It's so stupid.
It's so stupid how we all just get in our own heads. And without fail, every single time, I'm still doing exactly what I set out to do. Yeah.
No doubt. No doubt. On that note, how can you look at other people as inspiration and know you aren't copying them? Like, what are some of the differences there?
Okay, so this is a good conversation. I think it's a relevant conversation. I've seen it talked about a few times recently in our community. So I feel like disclaimer number one, obviously there is an extent, there is a line to the like where a shoot that you have created is pretty much an exact copy of someone else's. Like there is a line and it's pretty obvious. I feel like if you take a step back and you look at the images side by side and they like the differences are practically minuscule, come on, like there it should be obvious.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite phrases, because I've just being copied or like people copying me in any sort of way when it comes to anything, it's never really annoyed me. But one of my favorite phrases is that there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, think about it this way, guys. There's 7 billion people in the world, and there have been billions of people before us, and there's literally nothing new. You really think that this type of stuff that you're creating hasn't been done before? Oof.
Yeah.
That's a little bit entitled to me, and it comes across a little elitist. And I'm sorry I said it. That word, such a trigger word.
Yeah. No, I mean, none of us are really doing anything that original.
No.
Yeah.
And I like to look at it from like, okay, I put together mood boards for almost every single one of my shoots, even like little engagement shoots that I do, because I try to keep my mind fresh with like, you know, new inspiration and stuff like that.
Wow, good for you.
It doesn't mean that I copy or I use everything on these mood boards, but it's just like, oh, here's some like fresh new ideas. Things
What do you do? Do you like put it as your phone background or something, so you can just
No,
like?
it's just on Pinterest. I just make them on Pinterest.
And
I
then
don't
do you
even
like screenshot and like look at them throughout the shoot?
Yeah, I'll screenshot it, and then if I feel, which doesn't happen very often, but if I'm feeling like I've kind of overdone it with all of my normal stuff or whatever, then I'll maybe look to it for
That's a
inspiration.
great idea.
But I don't do it very often. But what I was gonna say is that I mean, we've put together a friend of mine, Ashley of Reed and Rye. There we go. She's the best. She put together some shoots at my studio recently that I shot, and she creates these mood boards, right? And one of them specifically had like this plastic involved where we were going to hang plastic from the walls and like put some flowers around it. And
this
it was
has
really
such
cool.
Dexter vibes. I'm obsessed.
I called it like a Barbie meets Dexter thing.
Yes!
It was really cool.
I
loved the
that.
photos. It was so much fun. We all had a great time. But what she did is like, obviously there was like probably this one main photo that inspired the base of the shoot. And then what she did is she pulled all of these different images from different shoots to kind of create a different look while you still using the same base idea. Right. So obviously like I don't want to produce content that is an exact copy of someone else, because it doesn't feel original. It doesn't feel like me. It feels like I just did what they did, which is sometimes why I don't really like participating in styled shoots. I like leading them because I feel like I like to teach people like how I shoot and stuff like that. But sometimes styled shoots just feel like, okay, well, I'm getting like the same images as everyone else. Like,
yeah. So I actually have a lot of strong opinions on group styled shoots. Maybe that will be like another conversation, but I don't think they help anyone.
I think they help from if you're going in it to learn from the mentor or the person that's leading it. That is my perspective on it personally. Yeah. But as far as like getting content, it's always been very interesting to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we put together this shoot, and it was, if you like looked at the photos that we took compared to the original like sourced images, the inspiration, you would never like think they were the same. You would never look at them and be like, oh, that's the exact same shoot. You wouldn't.
Right.
And that's something that I just think is really cool. Now, I feel like I had a point and now I'm blanking. Oh no.
Well, so the tangent I think you were going down is that you saw the picture that was the inspiration. It was the plastic, and then you guys took it and used other inspiration sources to add on to it.
Right, correct.
And that's how you could tell you weren't just copying it, you guys were making it your own.
Yes, and this like is, you can look at this from any perspective. I mean, like people who have weddings create mood boards. They get ideas from
other weddings.
That doesn't mean that they're just going to copy everything that someone did, but they're going to get like different ideas from different people. Like the whole... any sort of piece, like any piece of decor is inspired by something. It is. So you've seen either a picture of something similar, or I did a wedding that had like a celestial theme. I'm positive that they looked up celestial style weddings on Pinterest.
I shot like 4 of those in 2019.
There you go. Yeah. See? And they're probably all over Pinterest. Yeah. So there's nothing new under the sun. Yeah. So
under the stars and moon.
I did think of the thing I think I forgot.
Okay.
Anyway, so we produced this shoot, and it was awesome and beautiful. And then another photographer reached out to me and was like, oh my gosh, I just saw your shoot. We literally were going to do something extremely similar, like in the next week or two, like just wanted to let you know. And I was like listening to this message, like, what do you mean like by similar? Like I'm sure you're not going to copy like what we did. I'm sure that wasn't the point. And she even explained to me like, we were going to use so much more color. Like these are like the outfits. This is like the type of look we're using more than one model. And I was like, why did you even have to tell me this? Like, I feel like it's like, there must be some sort of like negative energy in the air that is making people feel like they can't even like do something that's similar to another person. Like it got to the point where I felt like I did this like skating shoot at a skate park, and literally I had it scheduled for a week out from when I saw another photographer post a shoot at a skate park that like had like a similar editorial vibe, and I was like, oh no, I hope that they don't think I'm copying them when I post mine next week.
I want to do one at a skate park now.
See? Yeah, but like it's been done. It wasn't like I found photos of couples at a skate park before I did my shoot.
Well, that's good to know.
It's
So if I do it now,
I'm not an original.
Those were the first. Okay.
No, they were not the first ones.
Interesting though. This is crazy. We have 2 minutes left. How is that possible? So
I feel like we have hardly touched the surface.
I think we need to end and do a part 2.
Wow.
We just got into the basics of how we source inspiration, but we didn't even hit like so many of our points.
Wow.
What do you think?
So many rambles.
Unless you think we can wrap up in 2 minutes, which I don't.
We don't.
Okay, so I'm just going to stop us here because I feel like we were at a good transitional moment.
Oh, how sad. Our first part
our
one
first
and part two.
One and part 2. Because this question had so much to it.
Yeah, that's
true.
So,
episode 1, we covered how we just shoot what we like, and our style naturally evolved.
Right.
We were just getting in. We were just scratching the surface of finding other photographers or other creatives as inspiration and how to not just straight up copy them.
Right.
We were just scratching the surface, so that it will be our part 2.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Well, yeah, so to conclude, your style like should develop based off of your preferences.
That's literally it.
That's literally it. Like, stop thinking so hard about what you want to be and just be, that phrase again, be yourself. It's so annoying to me,
just, like,
but it's so real.
Be the best version of, like, be your best photographer. Like, your most ideal photographer.
Be your best photographer. That's great.
Don't focus on, like, finding the ideal clients or finding the ideal style. Like, who are you as your most ideal creative?
Right. What would you want? If you were having a wedding right now, what would you want your photos to look like?
Yeah.
Or if you were having a shoot of you done, what would you want it to look like?
Yeah.
And we out.
We out. Okay. Follow along to part 2 for some more conversation on sourcing inspiration without straight up copying, or is that okay? I don't know.
Good.
We'll find out. Okay, bye.